like you said, to Trump, but they're getting greedy.
They said, go out there and rob these houses and bring back the bounty, and then that'll pay your way.
Because Republicans who get endorsement from the vegetarians, they mean anything.
You can't sit on the sidelines any longer. You must get involved in the game. This is your sign.
All of us coming back. I cannot accept this fade to black, and the thought of the wasted dreams of a nation down on its knees. Is it already over? Tickets to the circus show. If you don't, then you'll never know. Take a stand while you have the time. Drown your fear and keep hope alive. Be the change that you want to see. Be the wrench inside the machine. Is it already over? Is it already over? I don't think it's over.
All right, everybody, good evening to Small Town Underground. It is Wednesday, March the 25th. This is our Wednesday night regular show. We're doing it an hour early tonight because we've got a very, very special guest that is going to be with us tonight. And so I hope you guys are tuning in. Please help me share the show. This is going to be a big one and a lot of really good information that we're going to be learning here tonight. We've got a country in crisis and we've got to save it. And so make sure to hit that subscribe button, like button, share this show out to all the groups. I'm going to continue once we get started. Tonight's just, like I said, a very special night. I want to welcome Bill Jasper to the show. And if you don't know who Bill Jasper is, he is the president of the John Birch Society. He is the senior editor of The New American, which is thenewamerican.com. This man has been a host of InfoWars. He's been all over the place. He's a wealth of knowledge, an author, just a true American icon. And I've been following this guy for a long time. I joined, of course, as most of you guys know, I joined the John Birch Society. Really believe in it. We're getting a chapter started up here. Actually signed up about 10 people last night. It was amazing. Thank you to Denny Hamilton, who was out there and did his presentation. But again, folks, we're in the fight of our life in America, and Bill Jasper is just a complete wealth of knowledge, and we have him here for a while tonight. So I want to welcome you to the show, Bill, and how are you doing this evening?
Doing well, Roy. Thank you so much for having me on. It's really a pleasure and an honor to be with you and with all of your guests tonight.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we've already got 50 here, and it'll be growing. The comments will be on tonight, and again, like I said, it's a blessing to have you here. Never thought I would be interviewing you, so this is really cool. And I think I would like to just kind of start the show with kind of tell it, people who aren't familiar with JBS, right? Several years ago, when I first heard about John Birch Society, I was told to stay away from John Birch. Those people are, they're far right, they're extremists, they're almost terrorists, right? And the more I get into the nasty swamp of politics and constitutional, liberties, I find that I keep going back to the John Birch Society, like this speaks my language. So kind of share with us your vision of the John Birch Society, why you got involved and what it's all about.
Sure. Well, like you, only quite a few years ago, actually in the early 70s, more than 50 years ago, I got involved with the John Birch Society, and I was just about ready to graduate from college then, and my parents had become involved in the Birch Society. And I was shocked and appalled. I thought, oh my gosh, I've heard John Birch Society. That's terrible, like Ku Klux Klan, Nazis, anti-Semites. But I said, wait, that doesn't fit my parents. They were very good Christian people. They both fought against the Nazis in World War II. My mother was an Army nurse. My dad was 82nd Airborne, paratrooper, D-Day, Market Garden, Battle of the Bulge, and all of that. And we grew up, playing Army, fighting Nazis. So
Right.
that didn't fit the script there, but still, I had heard all of this stuff, particularly after I was in college, and so my folks said, "Well, hey, we've studied this." They gave me a big stack of books and pamphlets and articles that were published by the John Birch Society or that were by other publishers that the John Birch Society promoted, because the Birch Society had, at that time, a whole network of bookstores, American Opinion Books. I'm a voracious reader. I always have been since I was a little kid. And I started reading all the material, and I thought, well, this doesn't square with what I've heard. I don't see anything in here that fits any of those salacious narratives. And so I began digging more and more. And one of the books that really struck me at the time was a worldwide bestseller, None Dare Call It Conspiracy, by Gary Allen, which we are republishing now. So that came out in the 60s, and
Really?
that followed up a previous book with similar title, None Dare Call It Treason, by John Stormer. And I read both of those books, missing, or it hadn't been refiled yet or something, or the machines weren't working. Missing, or it hadn't been refiled yet or something, or the machines weren't working. So anyway, it was quite a bit more laborious than it is now. Right. And so after going through quite a bit of that documentation, I was pretty sure that, okay, these things weren't being quoted out of context. These were legitimate prime source materials. And what they showed was that there is a mysterious shadow government of people in our government and in business and in the foundations and in academia who are promoting a leftist agenda, but even beyond that. There were many at that time and previously during World War II and before, actual communists and Soviet agents, people like Alger Hiss and Lawrence Duggan and John Carter Vincent and many others, Victor Perlow, who were in high-level positions in our government, who were traitors. They were giving our secrets to the enemy, and even more, they were directing our own policy. They were having a huge influence on the Roosevelt administration and then on the Truman administration. And that became, and for a lot of people to go, wait, what? That was followed then just 3 years later with the communist attack on Korea and the Korean War. And so Americans were going, wait, what's happening here? It seems like our State Department is really being run by the Politburo. And particularly when it started coming out that all these State Department officials, Treasury Department officials, Agriculture Department, Defense
Mm-hmm.
Department officials, OSS, which became the CIA, people like Duncan Lee and Maurice Halperin and the OSS were Soviet agents. And
Mm-hmm.
so we had at that time a lot of people then were asking the big question that you'll see if you just type in into your search engine who lost China in
Mm-hmm.
question marks, you'll see that was for several years right after 1949. That was the big furor. People were saying, who lost China? Why did we see China go communist? Because it was very obvious that Mao Zedong was an agent at that time of the Soviet Union.
Right.
He was completely put in power by the Soviets.
Mm-hmm.
But I shouldn't say completely put in power, because the real critical steps were being made by American communists in our government.
Right.
And that's what then brought about the congressional investigations in both the Senate Internal Security Subcommittee, and the House Committee on Un-American Activities. And that's when Senator Joseph McCarthy, even before the Senate Internal Security Committee, when he started his investigations, a lot of what really happened, all of a sudden, all of the media and all of academia and all of the big corporate bigwigs and those in our State Department and in the administration came down like a ton of bricks on Senator McCarthy. And he was called every name in the book. Most of all, they were claiming that he was a terrible human being, that he was ruining people's lives, that he was misquoting everything, that he didn't have any evidence, that he was exaggerating all of the communist influence. And the media attacks were so intense, I mean, thousands and thousands of them perpetually going after him, that even many of his supporters in the Republican Party, he was a Republican senator from Wisconsin, started backing away because they didn't want to get tarred with the same brush. And that had happened around the same time to Congressman Martin Dies, who was in charge of the House Committee on American Activities, and he was subjected to the same treatment. And so here we saw during those hearings dozens of defectors who had previously been high-level Communist Party members or even Soviet agents, people like Whittaker Chambers, like Haida Massing, Bella Dodd, Nathaniel Whale, Maurice Malkin, Joseph Zach Kornfetter, Paul Crouch. There were dozens and dozens of them that broke with the Communist Party, that came forward to testify.
That's right.
And an amazing thing happened. Here's these people that are putting their lives, literally, like Walter Kravitsky. He was assassinated after he testified before the committee. He was a Soviet defector, a Russian. They were putting their lives and their careers online. Most of them didn't work after. We keep hearing about the Hollywood blacklist. Well, the real blacklist was against the anti-communists, particularly those who came forward and testified. And it was so horrendous. And time after time after time, this happened. Elizabeth Bentley was another one, a very important one. They were attacked. They were called traitors. They were called stoolies, liars. But an amazing thing, it took 40 years, in some cases 50 years, for the evidence to vindicate them. Here they were, they had their, they were there when all this was happening. They gave under oath, gave their testimony.
Right. They laid out the game plan, right?
Yeah, we didn't get the validation documentarily for much of it until after the KGB archives were opened partially in the 1990s. So this, all this was taking place in the late 30s, the 40s, and the early 50s. And it wasn't until the mid 90s that the Soviet archives were open, that the Venona archives were open. Venona were the secret encrypted messages that have their testimony in them, And guess what? Over and over again, Elizabeth Bentley, Whittaker Chambers, Isabella Dodd, they were vindicated.
Mhm.
Yeah, Whittaker Chambers, Isabella Dodd, they were vindicated.
Mhm.
Yes,
Right.
but they were already dead. People who had attacked them at that time were dead, and unfortunately, a media dumbed down and intoxicated generation no longer knew the significance of these revelations. And
Right.
so what does all this mean? So during that whole time period, World War II and the subsequent time period up until the 1990s, we had a Soviet apparatus, communist apparatus here in the United States that was operating pretty much openly in the various administrations. And then when people came forward to expose that, to warn the nation about the imminent danger that this presented, they were the victims of these terrible attacks.
Mm.
And that included not just the witnesses, but then the people like Senator Pat McCarran, Senator McCarthy, Representative Martin Dice, and patriotic Americans like Robert Welch, the founder of the John Birch Society,
Right.
John T. Flynn, the founder of America First, which was that was clear back in the late 1930s. John T. Flynn, and that's where Donald Trump took the slogan "America First"
Right.
from the America First Committee back at that time, which was trying to alert the American people to this constant drive to keep us involved in perpetual war for perpetual peace, to reconfigure the whole world, and to push for a global communist style world government. And
Yes.
so we are still saddled with that. And in fact, the reason the John Birch Society was so viciously, so maliciously attacked in sustained attack was because we didn't just point at these communists, but we pointed out the obvious thing. Why are these influential, important, powerful people in business and particularly in the media protecting these traitors? And why are they attacking the patriots who are trying to save our country?
Right.
And that is when, so back at that time, a lot of people figured, oh, well, the people running ABC, NBC, CBS, New York Times, etc., Washington Post, the Catherine Grahams, the owners and directors of these organizations must be communists.
Mm-hmm.
But we looked at that, Robert Welch did, and he said, well, we don't ever call people communists unless we can actually, particular big C communists, unless they have themselves admitted to being a member of the Communist Party, or they have been identified in sworn testimony by witnesses and defectors, or an official investigative arm of the United States or a state government has found them to be actual communist members. So that's one of the canards that's really false. We don't willy-nilly call people communists. If they are promoting communist ideas, but they're not an actual member of the Communist Party or haven't been proven, we say they are Marxists or Marxist-Leninists. A Marxist is somebody who adheres to Marxist ideology, and if he's a Marxist-Leninist, he actually not only believes in the Marxist ideology, but subscribes to or is friendly to the Leninist organizational aspect, which Marxist communists technically refer to themselves as Marxist-Leninists.
Right.
And so I bring that up because that's a common canard that you will hear, oh, the Birchers, and when they call everybody a communist. It's not true. It's just simply not true.
Right.
And I can tell you from my 50 years of involvement with the John Birch Society, we have been very careful about that. Before I came on, the New American Magazine
Mm-hmm.
is a print magazine that is published by the John Birch Society since 1985. So we've been around a little anti-communist and free market, anti-communist and free market economists and historians like Dr. Francis X. Gannon, Henry Hazlitt, famous economist. We even had Ludwig von Mises and others of that type. Martin Dies, Representative Martin Dies, he wrote for us, and so did Dr. J.B. Matthews, who was a former communist. So we had a very good lineup of people writing for the magazine at that time, which was called American Opinion Monthly Magazine.
Right.
Then we had it as a PDF as well. So the Insider Report carries on in kind of the same fashion as the Review of the News did back in those days. So what we have done over the years is to carry on that tradition that Robert Welch started in the John Birch Society to what? To wake the town and tell the people, as my predecessor as president, John McManus, would always say. He was a wonderful, wonderful man, great friend and colleague. And what are we trying to wake the town and tell the people about? Well, as you said at the very start, we're in an existential fight. We are fighting for the survival of our country, of our freedoms, of our families. It's very obvious that we are under attack in an extraordinary way at every level.
Every level.
Economic, political, social, familial, moral, religious, spiritual. All of these areas are under a concerted attack, and it is one that has been going on for at least a century. But in fact, we have shown that it goes back further than that. But we focus most of our attention on what has been happening in the past century, because here in this country, all of those influences that I referred to that were assisting the communists and attacking the anti-communists and the patriots and undermining patriotism and belief in God, family, and country, all of those things we have seen this attack. Particularly, we have focused on the Council on Foreign Relations because just 4 years ago, they had their centennial, their 100th anniversary. And in 100 years, they have attained unparalleled power. Important in that is it shows that you cannot find any other organization that has the level of influence which the CFR does in terms of placing all of its members in the administrations, the cabinet level, assistant secretaries, deputy secretaries, all throughout every one of the agencies. And
they're embedded.
And then beyond that, we show all of the various think tanks, the corporations, the media companies, etc., academic institutions, where these people have all become ensconced. And I could show you a number of examples of where media commentators and politicians go crazy when they get apoplectic when they say, "Oh, this organization there's 3 Birchers there in this county commission or in this organization." All of our other writers wrote some of them. And so we have, as I pointed out here, several times done the list again. But this time we will have not just the list, but a whole essentially a book, 100-page book in magazine format on the conspiracy. Because why? Well, for the last 30 years plus, since the time when we did our conspiracy for global control, you have heard undoubtedly a million times, if not more, during that time period about conspiracy theory and conspiracy theorists. I mean, you turn on any news program, you look up any controversial issue on your search engines, you'll find conspiracy theory. So, I mean, if you look up me, you'll find out that I'm labeled as a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
And what is that intended to do? Well, as in our 1996 issue, we opened it with an article that I happened to have written, and I opened it with a quote from Ira Strauss, professor at a number of universities, writing for the Christian Science Monitor. And and I believe the title of it was Conspiracy Theory is Doing Real Harm. It Kills. And he goes through there and saying that, so this is just a year after the Oklahoma City bombing.
Oh,
and
wow.
so he's claiming that Timothy McVeigh was motivated by a conspiracy theory, and see what happened, the worst terrorist incident in history. And so everyone who promotes a conspiracy theory as defined by the left, by the insiders, by the globalists, is, as Time magazine said, an ideational co-conspirator with Timothy McVeigh. So conspiracy theories are not just tinfoil hat loonies who
Correct.
we can mock and roll our eyes at. We need to arrest them and cancel them and fire them and dox them and destroy them. That's been the line for the last 30 years. And so anyone who tries to look at and examine and expose those who are trying to destroy our country, whether they're communists, socialists, globalists, or whatever, is automatically consigned to oblivion because they are conspiracy theorists. So
would you
files have particularly across the spectrum from, if you use right, left, but I mean across Republicans, Democrats, have registered in polls and surveys. The majority of people believe, yes, there is something very wrong here. This is being covered up. There are powerful forces that are trying to keep any of the perpetrators who were involved with Epstein from being brought to justice. The orange jumpsuits, nada. So, that hasn't happened. And why is that? Obviously, these are horrendous things, even what we don't have proven thus far. But with the quantity of victims and the quantity of high-level people in all areas, all sectors of society. We have royalty from England and Holland and elsewhere, and we have presidents and prime ministers and potentates and sultans and CEOs and billionaires, lots of billionaires. So why are all of them exempt? Why the immunity and impunity? And so a lot of people are saying, hey, this has gone too far. They're willing to believe that there isn't a nothing to see here, move along narrative anymore. But it isn't just the Epstein files. That's kind of the capstone. But what we saw in the last 5, 6, 7 years, particularly with COVID, we saw for the first time in world history the whole planet on lockdown, primarily at the behest of, at the initiation of Communist China
That's right.
and the World Health Organization of the United Nations. And the head of the executive director of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, is a communist. I mean,
Yes.
he was a leader of the communist terrorist group in the planet. We're injected with an experimental, quote unquote, vaccine,
Yes.
which is, I believe, and we've shown various world experts to say it is a biological weapon.
Biological weapon.
So,
Absolutely.
so and that is, in addition to that, we were subjected to mask mandates, to shutdowns of churches, the first time in world history
Right.
that all the churches are shut down, but
Family
casinos
businesses.
and massage parlors
Right.
and
Yeah.
big box stores, they're allowed to stay open.
Corporations. Corporations
Yeah.
were allowed to paint arrows in their aisles to tell you which way that you had to go, or you could be arrested if you went down. But we shut down, barbershops. It's absolutely ridiculous.
So what did that accomplish? Well, a lot of things that that appeal to any communist, collectivist, socialist, social engineer. It got people to automatically fall into line to become cattle in the big herd, and it also destroyed worldwide millions of mom and pop businesses, even medium-sized businesses.
The biggest transfer of wealth ever in the history of America was during COVID, right? To the private sector.
That is correct.
Yes.
That is correct. And so, I mean, we created lots more billionaires from the privileged class.
Yes.
Who had the access, but we lost a lot of freedom in the process. But that did spark a revolt amongst millions of people, and started people asking. And not only that, but there were so many other things that happened that made it obvious to more and more of our fellow human beings that, hey, there's some kind of plan that is pushing us all toward more and more control, taking away more and more of our freedoms. What, like all the biometric identification that's being
Facial
forced on us,
yes.
all the massive surveillance state with
flock cameras,
CCTV cameras everywhere, like in communist China.
That's right.
The massive invasion of our country with millions of migrants just in a 4-year period.
Right.
We had already seen this a few years before, in 2014, 2015, in Europe, when all of this was happening.
Right.
But then we saw during the Biden administration this massive influx across our borders, where
Yes.
Trump is given to exaggeration a lot of the time, but he probably isn't exaggerating in saying that it was over 10 million. He said tens of millions. We don't know,
right.
but it's
undocumented, unaccompanied,
yes, unvetted. And so, and not only the millions who came across the border, but during the Biden administration, and I say the Biden administration because I don't think many people believe anymore that Joe Biden, who had to be directed around the White House egg roll by the Easter Bunny, and he was looking befuddled and couldn't, or when he was at the G20 summit and wandered off into the palm trees and the rest of the world leaders were looking embarrassedly around at what's going on here with the president. People don't, with any sense, don't really believe that Joe Biden was in charge. So whoever his handlers were, and we have our ideas about who those people were, but they were directing this invasion of the United States, which was being coordinated with the United Nations. The John Birch Society has been exposing the United Nations for a great many years, going clear back to the 1960s. And I have been our correspondent at the United Nations for over 30 or 35 years.
Wow.
Thankfully, I have some younger talent doing that, Alex Newman and Andrew Muller, and sometimes some of our other reporters. But for instance, during the invasion, we had Council on Foreign Relations member Amy Pope, who had been working in the Biden and the Obama administrations, and Biden nominated her to run the UN's International Organization for Migration, which is based in Geneva, with all the rest of Switzerland, with a couple dozen other UN organizations and several dozen more UN affiliated NGOs, including the infamous World Economic Forum of Klaus Schwab and billionaire globetrotters.
And who also bragged that how many people from his organization is worldwide and in all of these governments and institutions that are trained in the World Economic Forum to basically take over. It's amazing to me how this is all connected.
Yeah, he boasted about it. And unfortunately, we're one of the very few, I don't know if we're the only, but we're one of the few organizations that have reported again and again that the World Economic Forum, I think it was 2017, anyway, we published and shown a photo of it, of Klaus Schwab and United Nations General Secretary Antonio Guterres meeting at the UN and signing this memorandum of understanding for a strategic partnership between the World Economic Forum and the United Nations. So
that's correct.
Here's the United Nations, which is supposedly this collection of nation states, which we fund. We pay for over 30% of it. And this private organization of billionaires and international globalists. And they have joined together. And so the private organization is really going to be in charge, and it already is in charge of much of what's going on at the United Nations. And so that is one of the things that really came out during the COVID time period was the World Economic Forum's Great Reset.
Right.
Which...
Yes, sir.
Yeah, anyway, there it is up there. COVID-19 and the Great Reset. So they called for a reset, a total reset of the whole world.
Right.
Politically, socially, economically, morally, religiously. And who are these masters of the universe that think they have godlike powers and omniscience to reset the world?
Right.
Well, Klaus Schwab and all of his
now Larry Fink can be added to that list, correct?
Yes, Larry Fink of BlackRock infamy. So, but you probably saw Brenda Borge of Sweden, who is the president of the World Economic Forum. Now he has been forced to resign because he was one of the Epstein clients there. Wow. So these are the people who are truly evil, who believe that they should be able to run the world, change the world, direct the world. And what are the things they are calling for? They're calling for the same kinds and pushing for the same kinds of things that we see in every communist dictatorship. They want to control everything. They want to control the food, the water, all of your commerce, all of your ability to travel, your ability to support your family, everything.
Money.
And money, yes. And so they're pushing for central bank digital currencies and digital tokenization of everything. Why? Because if everything is digitized and it's all centralized in a central ledger with AI to tell every time you are involved in any commerce or any time you make a statement or express an opinion which they determine is detrimental to the good, the common good as they see it, they can simply
Yeah, they can get rid of you.
demonetize you, debank you, make it so that you cannot buy any gasoline to travel,
Right.
even know exactly where you are and come and arrest you if
Yes.
your expressed opinions
Yes.
violate what they claim is against the common good. So, I mean, this is very Orwellian. We use that term a lot, but truly, this is a big brother everywhere, watching every breath you take,
That's
and
right.
especially with the global warming, climate change,
Yes.
net zero thing. Every breath you take,
Right.
and every breath you make, you're putting out CO2, and
Right.
your carbon footprint has to be
Right. It's it's not.
controlled. In Italy, outside of Rome, and they were the ones in 1972 who came out with the publication, The Limits to Growth, which claimed, piggybacking on Paul Ehrlich's population bomb and the ecologist publication, Blueprint for Liberty, that if we're going to have any survival on this planet, we have to limit the population.
Less people, right.
And that occurred in 1972. And just a few months after that, and the Club of Rome was founded in 1968. The Trilateral Commission was founded in 1971. So right in that time period, in 1971, David Rockefeller sent Henry Kissinger, who was at first National Security Advisor to Nixon, then Secretary of State. And he was one of the bigwigs in the Council on Foreign Relations. He was one of the founders of the World Economic Forum, one of the early founding members of the Trilateral Commission, which David Rockefeller founded. He sent him over to China, to Beijing, to have his infamous secret meeting, which we didn't find out about till later, his secret meeting with Mao Zedong and Zhou Enlai.
Yes.
And he then, now you can find at the National Security Archives the memo that Kissinger wrote to Nixon after his meeting with Mao. And he, in there, talks about how China has to reduce its population. And originally, Mao Zedong was saying, no, we don't need to. We're going to need more people, because he had already killed tens of millions by that time. And so this was right in the throes of the Cultural Revolution, when the Red Guard were going out and pulling everybody in and killing them and torturing them and re-educating them. And tagging along with Henry Kissinger as his assistant was Winston Lord, who would later, a few years later, become chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations. And he and Winston Lord met with Mao and his top echelon. Then they came back and they started the process of getting the Nixon administration to recognize Communist China and to kick Taiwan, the Republic of China, our anti-communist allies, kick them to the curb.
Right.
And that's what they did. And that was the beginning of the whole process that we now see the fruits of today. Who is our main enemy that we're spending trillions of dollars to defend against?
China, absolutely.
Communist China.
And we've sent our industry over to China.
Right, and we you can go on the New American Magazine and you can see value electronics to cameras, to medical instruments, to pharmaceuticals, every kind of food processing. All of that was textiles. All of that was here. And we reported over and over again about how all these strategic, important manufacturing processes were being not just shared with them, but packed up and shipped over there.
Right.
And this was done conscientiously.
Absolutely.
To strip
on
America of our advantages and make it so that we would be forced to be incorporated into this socialist,
Right.
communist, technocratic New World Order.
Now, I would like to interject one thing there because I've often, alluded to a theory about this, right? We've covered so much ground tonight, and we're talking about how these plans were laid in place, the fruits of the labor happened years and years, decades later. One of my theories, of course, is that, the Constitution is what makes America what it is, right? And it's a one and only one of its kind. And we understand, many of us, that this global push and depopulation, it's all connected, this Agenda 2030, all of the Council of Foreign Relations. Is this the main attack because they have to destroy the Constitution in order to bring this nation?
On foreign relations and the insiders, Robert Welch on foreign relations and the insiders. Robert Welch coined that term, the insiders, to describe these people that are pushing this, who are not necessarily communists. We just know that they're pushing for the same goal, and they seem to have inside tracks into all the high positions in government, corporations, etc. And they have succeeded in placing on the bench in numerous courts, as we've seen during all the lawfare of the last few years, judges who just totally disregard the Constitution. And we have plenty of legislators, both Republican and Democrat, as we've seen multiple times in just in the past few months, and of course in past years, that vote against the Constitution. So that would be a good cue to throw up our scorecard.
Yes,
there, the Freedom Index.
Yes, we use this quite a bit in this area. It's become like the standard for judging our legislators.
Excellent. Well, so we have been pointing out that, look, our founding fathers gave us the Constitution, which limits the government, particularly the federal government. So the Constitution, as Madison said, the powers of the federal government are limited and few. The powers reserved to the states are many and innumerable. So the founding fathers intended us to be a constitutional republic that would limit the federal government, legislative, executive, and judicial powers, but also they referred to it as a compound republic because there was also the added checks and balance of the local, or rather the local states, having the reserved huge amounts of power. The federal government would only have that which they were specifically given in the Constitution. So it was then incumbent upon the states to protect their rights against the federal government, and it's up to the citizens to make sure that their effort are trying to do, and with success. And so we have, in the New American Magazine, produced our Freedom Index, which with adhering to or violating the Constitution. All of our elected officials take an oath of office to uphold the Constitution and defend it. And then if they're a state official, they also take an oath to the state constitution.
That's right.
And that is appropriate. But for many of them, it's merely a formality. They don't really adhere to it.
They do not. We get laughed at.
It's citizens like you and me that have to hold them accountable, hold their feet to the fire, because as a number of the founding fathers said, the Constitution is not a self-enforcing, self-executing power. It is a paper document, and it has only the force that we give it.
Right.
And so that means that instead of spending all our time on frivolous pursuits, even those that are legitimate, there's nothing wrong with occasionally watching a football game or a baseball game or hunting or fishing or any other legitimate activity. But if those things are dominating our time, then we are squandering we are endangering that precious
Yes.
freedom that has been given to us by all of the people who have bled and died for it in all our wars, all the people who have fought for it in our legislatures, all our founding fathers, with all of the wonderful efforts that they have put into giving us. So that's why the John Birch Society urges people to find out, to know who their legislators are in a debate, but you can't trust them simply by their words. You have to go by their record, by their deeds.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why we publish the Freedom Index.
Yes.
And then we
Wonderful
actually, and
tool.
it shows all of the members of Congress, but then we do the scorecard on each of them. And you can probably show your
Sure.
folks that as well. Or
Yeah.
maybe you
If
have.
I've got it pulled up here, and as you can see, I'm scrolling over it, and you can actually go to any state, and many of the people in my audience, this is pretty much the standard that we use. And a lot of our legislators do not like this scorecard. But we try to explain to them, of course, I mean, Bill, when we go down to the Capitol and you mention the word Constitution, our legislators are laughing at us behind our back mostly. So very engaged with these people, but they obviously don't take it seriously. But I come to this, we've shared this 100 times. We're like, I'm just in Georgia now, and we're just looking at, well, the first one that pops up is Senator Colton Moore, 92%. And then now it looks like you guys have updated it from the best to the worst now. But very good tool to use.
Yeah, it's quite unique.
It's the standard, really.
And it is one of the very few ways that we can hold our legislators. What is a legislator? They're the people who pass the laws. The Article 1, Section 1, Paragraph 1, Sentence 1 of the U.S. Constitution says all legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in Congress of the United States, which shall be composed of the House of Representatives and Senate. So the judges cannot legislate legally, constitutionally. The president cannot legislate legally, constitutionally. And, I'll get in trouble here with some of the MAGA audience, but even when we agree with President Trump, and we don't on all the time, but when we do on the objective or the stated objective, we a lot of times don't agree with the method, which is President. We didn't go along with liberal left Democrats issuing executive orders and calling it the law. Neither do we do the same for Republicans. So
No, I think it's pretty fair and balanced.
Yeah. So we have been supportive of President Trump when he was and is being unfairly attacked, when he is being persecuted, when he is being subjected to lawfare, when he is being misquoted. But we stick to our guns when he is violating the Constitution, or
as we should.
Yes,
as we should.
So here's the thing: we have an election coming up, and it looks pretty dark. We could end up with
it looks very dark.
A Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House again, or
Yes.
or an AOC or something like that. But a lot of it, if that happens, a lot of that will redound to President Trump, because he has done things that are unconstitutional and that have been, I think, just wrongfully implemented. And if that happens, we're going to be in a world of hurt. And so what we do need some people in there who are going to hold the line in the state legislatures and in the Congress.
Correct. So I agree with you 100%, but it seems like the people that we have now that are holding the line are now being the most targeted. And I'm having trouble. Like dealing with this. I call this clown world anyway. But we're talking about if Lindsey Graham has become the poster child for MAGA, if you will, and then we're trying to persecute Thomas Massey, I feel like we're in an upside down world here. We're supposed to be always sticking to our guns, always protecting the Constitution, because everything that you've laid out up until this point has been to destroy the Constitution. So it's like we're in some kind of alternate reality. I don't know if you agree.
Right.
But
So in Trump 45, his first term, if you go back in the New American Mag, he was first running. I and Steve Bonta and others were not real strongly supportive of him. This was during the election. He didn't have really a good record other than, okay, so he's a businessman and he has name recognition and he's got a lot of money and he's saying a lot of the right things, but typical of many corporatists at that time, he had himself supported both liberal Democrats and conservative Republicans, typical businessman who's not really committed. He had manufactured a number of his products over in China. I was very upset one time at a Birch Society event that I went to, and I had forgot to pack my tie, so I had to rush off to a mall. And I saw a tie that looked good. I grabbed it and went and paid for it. Then I get back and I see, oh, it's a Donald Trump collection. And then I read on the label, made in China. And so, he wasn't really strongly committed, and he had a lot of baggage with regard to his just his Hollywood things and his beauty queen things, and claims of messing around with young girls and stuff. And this was before the Epstein stuff started coming out. But he did not appear to be really top drawer material, except that he did appear to be pugnacious and a fighter, and we definitely needed a fighter. And so after he got the nomination and he ran, and he began to really push on some things that struck home to us. I mean, never, and I've said this on other broadcasts and podcasts, in our lifetimes, certainly in my lifetime, and I'm in my 70s now, so most of the people on American voters have never seen anyone, Republican or Democrat, as a presidential candidate attack the globalists, attack the United Nations, call for America first,
to drain the swamp.
All of the things that say, look, we have to seal the border, we have to take back control of our borders. We didn't even get that from Reagan, from Bush one or Bush two, of course, from Nixon or Ford. Began attacking China and our trade with China, and saying we needed to bring the manufacturing back to the United States. Nobody had said that. None of the other candidates had been calling for that. And then he went out, even more recently, calling for taking back the Panama Canal. Well, I mean, that was I did a webinar on that a year and a half or so ago. I mean, those are things that were unheard of. And so maybe, this guy is coming out of the blue. Maybe he truly is a patriot who is going to fight. And he might not have real presidential presence in terms of being the kind of speech and mannerisms that you would want, but hey, we're fighting.
Sure,
we're in a death spiral as a nation, and we need somebody who will fight. And I'll overlook it. Some people have said, well, hey, if I'm about ready to die after a car accident, I've been bleeding to death, and I have a doctor whose bed manner I don't like, but he's a good surgeon and he can save my life.
Sure.
I'll overlook some of those things.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of how we were for the last few years, and particularly when he was being unmercifully attacked,
Yes.
unfairly, viciously,
Mm-hmm.
nonstop. Yeah, I mean, we had been subjected to that kind of thing, but the what he was being
Yeah.
subjected to, and in terms of the lawfare and
Right.
everything against him,
Yeah, I don't think we'd ever
was
seen anything like that before.
we'd never seen anything like that. And so, okay, this appears that he's authentic. But then come into Trump 47, and it's like a flip flop on so
Yeah,
many things.
and
And particularly, for instance, so right out of the gate in January, he did a wonderful thing that we praised. Uh, January of this year, where he withdrew U.S. support for 66 United Nations agencies
that's
and
right.
NGOs.
That's right.
Nobody's ever done that before,
Mm-hmm.
and took us out of the World Health Organization,
That's right.
stopped our participation in the Paris Accord. So I mean, those were things that nobody else has done.
Right.
But then he turns right around just a couple of weeks ago and says his board of peace, which he set up unconstitutionally in Gaza, and
Mm-hmm.
appointed globalists to run it, and he's named himself on that, and then he says, well, he's going to turn it over to the United Nations because the United Nations is really a fantastic organization, and we're
Right.
going to start paying our back dues. And he released $188 million here and whatnot. So
Bill,
we see this over and over again. He says one thing, and
I'm
then
so
uh,
you obviously have a wealth more of knowledge, and I just want to kind of set this up as a person who I'm just a small town guy. I'm no authoritative figure. I don't even like the term influencer. We're just trying to call it as we see it. There's this huge shift, like you're talking about, with Donald Trump, and many of us who, if I had to vote for Donald Trump again tomorrow, I would vote for the man tomorrow. Okay, but we're looking at all of these past campaign promises, the rhetoric, the things that we voted for, the things that we weathered the storms through. With him, and we sort of, it's not like I'm banging the table saying you must do this now, but the problem is that things have took such a weird turn, and now it's like, I guess, MAGA, or the grassroots, if you will, Republican Party. It's like people are either too afraid, or they want to come and chastise you for speaking about it, or saying, hey, this isn't right, why are we doing it this way? And it's create kind of a big upset, because everybody's sort of pointing the fingers at each other, but you've been around this a lot longer. I mean, can you talk about that?
well, yes. So to me, it is very reminiscent of what we have seen in the past. Only this time, the magnitude of it is quite a bit larger, because, for instance, when Richard Nixon did his flip flop on China,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Republicans were very upset with that. Some, like, for instance, John Schmitz, who was a congressman on our national council, what did he call it? He severed relations with the White House, he said, with Nixon, and so did other people. But at that time, so this was in the early 70s, there was no internet, there was no alternative media. You had ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, NPR,
Right.
and that was it. And then you had all the print media, and they controlled everything. And they all said, "Oh, this is a wonderful thing." The same thing when
Mockingbird
the same thing when Nixon flip flopped on the Environmental Protection Agency. He's the one that gave us this monstrous EPA that has taken
That's
over
right.
and destroyed so much of our private enterprise. He also implemented OSHA, the
Mm-hmm.
Occupational Safety and Health Administration, a whole raft of executive orders that he did.
Was
that
he
were
the
completely
Department of Education?
Excuse me?
Did he do the Department of Education as well as at 79?
No, that was under Carter and Mondale.
Carter. All right. My
Yeah.
bad.
So, but we've gone through a whole bunch of articles exposing Nixon, and he had this image of being Mr. Conservative Republican, but he wasn't. He was a Rockefeller man. He worked. He was actually put in office by Nelson Rockefeller and David Rockefeller, and so when we and other conservatives tried to say, "Hey, look, we don't want to support this fake Republican," what did we get? Well, people said, "Well, so you want McGovern in there, George McGovern, the commie Democrat?" And
Right.
so this is the bifurcation that the insiders set up each time. They know they can get the conservatives in a vice by saying, "Okay, you're going to accept our fake Republican, or you're going to get a communist, socialist,
Right.
progressive Democrat."
Well,
And they've done that over and over again. And so when we had this same thing with Gerald Ford then, and the media attack him, and that makes it appear that, okay, he must be conservative because the media is attacking him. They never did quite like they've done with Trump,
right.
but I mean, they did it enough to give cover so that Republican, they know the response is that Republicans will conservatives will reflexively run to defend the one who's being attacked by the obvious left. And they did it with Reagan. Now, a lot of we had an even more difficult time with Reagan because Reagan, like Trump, he would take the right position on a lot of things, but he had a more folksy, gentle, likable, non-aggressive character that a lot of people identified with. And but
so
he appointed all CFR trilateralist people in his office, in his administration, and even after campaigning against George Bush on the trilateral issue, I've explained in a couple of broadcasts that I've been on. In the New Hampshire primary against George Bush, when they were both trying to get the Republican nomination, I got a call from Congressman John Rousseau, who was my congressman in California at the time, and who was on Reagan's campaign committee. And he called and he said, "I see in something that you've written that you say George Bush is a member of the Trilateral Commission. How do you know that?" And I said, "Well, it's because it's on their membership list." And he says, "How do you know that?" And I said, "Well, because I have a copy of their membership list. I said I got it from their office in New York when I was there." And he said, "Well, can you send that to us?" I said, "Well, I'm sure they'll give you a copy." He says, "No, they say they don't have any lists there." So I faxed him a copy of the Trilateral Commission membership list showing George Bush on it. And candidate Reagan used that in his New Hampshire campaign, denouncing George Bush as a trilateralist. Why did that have traction? Because everyone knew that the guy that they were wanting to succeed, Jimmy Carter, was a charter member of the Trilateral Commission. He had put Zbigniew Brzezinski and all these other trilateralists. And we had made that a big issue. And so then he used that and he won the New Hampshire primary. And then what did he do after winning the race? He puts George Bush in as vice president, and then he lines up. So it was really, in his case, he had name recognition, but unlike Trump, he did not have his own money, his own base. He was relying upon the whole Rockefeller wing of the Republican Party. They just said, "Okay, we want you to be Mr. Conservative up there." And so when we then went through his record, comparing his record and the bills that he was supporting and the policies that he was establishing, in the New American Magazine. In fact, I wrote 2 of the cover stories on that, and we got blasted by a lot of concern. Why you're attacking our sainted Ronald? I said, we're
Oh
not
yeah.
attacking Reagan. We're exposing his record
Mm.
here, and so those articles are still there for those people that may be
Yes.
listening who still think that Ronald Reagan is sacrosanct. They need to look at the record. And
Right.
some people say you're just againers. You're again everybody. No, we're not again everybody. We just want those people who are
Right.
again the Constitution to be exposed.
You know, I'm so glad you brought that up, because this whole paradigm that we live in, this left, right, blue, red, alt left, alt right, it's to keep us all fighting down here in the trenches, while like the sort of globalists just keep
Because a lot of people look at all this, they just go, "Oh, this is such a mess," and they just want to throw up their hands and say resistance is futile. Well, resistance is futile. Well,
I have to admit, I feel that way sometimes.
yeah, I mean, we all do. I mean, I've been doing this for a lot of years,
Yes.
and particularly, I have walked, besides my work as an investigator and reporter and whatnot. As a citizen, I have walked lots of work as an investigator and reporter and whatnot. As a citizen, for Congress, local officials, because I believe that's what we have to do.
Right.
And many times I have been disappointed would be an understatement. I've been crushed by some of the people who were actually, they weren't just fakes. They were good people, but when they get in office,
Yeah, the
then
system gobbles
they
them
end
up.
up going south.
Mhm.
And why is that? Because power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And even if they are not corrupt,
Mhm.
in other words, if they haven't been bribed or extorted or something, they get pressured, and a lot of
Yeah.
people just weaken and go along. And so,
Well, wouldn't you
and
agree?
I, we need to be active as citizens in helping elect good people.
Yeah.
But then what do you do? A lot of people, it's very easy every 4 years or every 2 years to put a bumper sticker on or put a sign in your yard or to sign a petition or what.
Mhm.
But really, we need to do more than that.
Yeah.
And so, as citizens, yes, we have to work to put good people in office. But then once they're in office, what do? You have to watch them. When they vote wrong, particularly if it's something really bad, you need to rebuke them in a civil but firm way, like Horatio Bunce did with Congressman Davy Crockett. We've written about that. I mean, it's a true story. We need to be good citizens in that way. Equally important, when they are under attack and they're good congressmen or congresswomen or state representatives, then we need to go to their support. They're under fire. We need to thank them for standing on principle. We need to write letters to the editor. We need to go on local talk shows, whatnot, and defend them. Because if they don't, I've seen it over and over again, good people just cave in to the pressure because nobody likes to be smeared and attacked all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Very few people have the thick rhino hide of a Donald Trump. That's one of the things I will credit him with. And most people would have wilted under the attacks, but he's one of those guys that seems to thrive on it. And
and there's one angle I want to cover with this too, and I think that you'd be very well educated for us in it. It's the system is almost designed to gobble them up, right? And we use this analogy a lot. You go and you elect a commissioner. That commissioner is who you elected to represent you, yet that commissioner actually works for unelected bureaucrats, whether it be planning commissions, joint development authorities, regional authorities, things higher than them, that the whole design is for them to take their orders from the state, from the corporations, and it works in complete reverse. When people don't even understand that, you think you're electing a commissioner, but really they are working for unelected bureaucrats. Can you elaborate on that?
Okay, so that's a big topic. I'll try to do it very briefly, because that has developed. So you always have lobbyists and people who are influencing or trying to influence the government. That is, they are paid lobbyists who are going there and buttonholing this politician, this mayor, this city councilman, and saying, "Hey, we need this legislation in, or we need this policy in, and here's a lower level $500 or $5,000 or $50,000," and so that's one level of influence, malevolent influence. But then what you're talking about are actual institutional governance boards and entities that have begun usurping the actual constitutional power of the elected officials. And it is a little different in every state, but essentially this has come about in the past. It's been almost now a century. And again, it goes back to the Rockefeller Foundation, which founded, we used to carry books, maybe we'll get them back into print again, by researcher Joe Hindman. And she wrote several books on metropolitan government. It's called Beware Metro and Terrible 1313. 1313, it was an address in Chicago where Rockefeller Foundation started building all of these organizations for councils of government, city managers, all these different entities that go under the rubric of COGS, COGs, councils of government. And so you have the City Managers Association, the Mayor's Association, all these, and they have gradually over the past century usurped control over much of our local government.
Right.
And if we are going to have any hope for our children and grandchildren, I don't know about you, but I have children and grandchildren, and I feel an obligation to pass on to them the same freedoms and opportunities that I have had. And so if we're going to have that, that means that we have to begin untangling those things. It's going to be a long process, and it's going to be arduous. We're going to have to be vigilant and keep working on it. We just have to commit ourselves. Okay. The alternative is we can project the lines and see where all of this is taking us, where we are losing more and more of control over our own destinies. We have bureaucrats and technocrats claiming authority to direct our lives. And we saw it, as we've already mentioned, during COVID, where it's gotten very totalitarian.
Yes.
They aren't backing off of that. We have to force them to back off. And that means that's what we're trying to do in the John Birch Society, to organize people to say, look, we need to educate ourselves and then educate our fellow citizens, our friends, our relatives, our family members.
We're recording this, so we'll release it in full, but the rest of it, Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, they've been rolling right along. We've had a wonderful crowd in here tonight, Bill. Many comments from all over the internet. And this has definitely been one of the bigger shows. I always give my guests the last word, but and maybe I'd just like to end my part to you with a question. But where do you see us as a nation in 5 years? If given everything that we've discussed, where we're at in this moment, do you see us getting over this hump, over the hurdle, and under a new horizon, or do you think that we're headed for some sort of technocratic, revolution that's just going to swallow us up? I mean, what do you think?
Well, that's something you, I, no one on this planet can really answer. We don't really know what the future holds, because we are very close to tipping over into that Orwellian nightmare. And it's up. That's why I believe all of us have to put aside non-essential things and really have all hands on deck. I don't want to see us go down the hill. I don't want to see us lose our freedoms, but it depends on us. It's a big if. So I believe in the power of prayer. I believe that we have to pray because we haven't discussed it, but Robert Welch says we are dealing with a satanic conspiracy. And the term satanic is often used in a generic sense, meaning evil or diabolical. But he said he means literally. Time in which we are in, Satan is still roaring about like a lion and seeking whom he may devour. And he does that through human agency, which is embodied in many evil people and the organizations which they are involved in. And so we have to fight this battle both on the spiritual plane, which means putting our own lives in order, eradicating our own sinful actions and thoughts and things, and seeking God's will in all that we do. But a lot of Christians, it's my opinion, and I think it's biblical. A lot of Christians have taken an easy way out, saying, "Oh well, it's all in God's hands." No, God uses us and has throughout history. Good people, Christians, have had to many times lay down their lives for what is right, and that's what we're called to do. Fortunately, we're here in the United States. We haven't had to do that yet. But that could be in the near future. So while we still have the freedom to associate, to educate, to activate ourselves and others, it is really our obligation to do that. Many people in other parts of the world don't have that privilege. They're already under the iron boot, the iron heel. And so it's up to us to not only preserve for us, but to help them with, as you know from our literature, most of the totalitarian dictatorships around the world have been put in place by the evil people in our government and are sustained by their continued help and assistance. So we have a big opportunity, a big chance to advance the freedom fight. And so for all of your listeners who are out there that want to find out what they can do, contact the John Birch Society at jbs.org, thenewamerican.com, and begin the process of educating, activating, and we can join arms together in this fight.
Yeah. Wow. What an absolute great show. It's been an honor and a pleasure to host you, and I hope one day soon we can get you back.
Hey, I'd be glad to. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, folks, there it is for the Wednesday night with Mr. Bill Jasper. Wow, a lot of stuff. Like he said, you can go to jbs.org. I think we signed up 10 people last night, and we're going to be starting up more and more chapters. We've got some training coming up throughout the state, and folks, don't throw in the towel. Just keep moving forward, and we're all going to be keep moving forward through this. But that's it tonight. I'll see you guys next week, and peace.
Legislature legalized unverifiable voting in 2000.
Like you said to Trump, but they're getting booty.
They said, go out there and rob these houses and bring back the bounty, and then that'll pay your way.
Because Republicans who get endorsement from Georgia carriers that they mean anything.
You can't sit on the sidelines any longer. You must get involved in the game. This is your sign.